Hello everyone. In this very session we'll try and create a servlet and we'll see how servlet works. Alright, so here under the src folder I can create any package or a namespace. Right. So let me just create a package, let's say with the name com programming advanced java concepts. For example this. Right. I'm just creating one servlet, and I will execute that servlet, and basically I want to show you that servlets can be created standalone and can be verified standalone too. Right. So how should I create it? New, other option, just click on servlet. Right, press next and mention any class name over here. Let's say this is my first servlet. So let's say this is the name of a servlet called first servlet. Right, just one second, let the name of a class comes up. Right, this is the name of a package. This is where the java file will get placed under the src folder. This is the name of a project. Right, and no servlet can be created till the time it does not extend the http servlet class. This is the abstract class, right, which has got abstract methods. For example, do get, do post, do delete, do put, do trace, do options. These methods are there as part of http servlet only, without which my servlet can't be created. So now I am clicking on next. Alright, so the moment I say next, I see URL mappings. Right, see, this is a name with which my servlet will be recognized in the entire container. For example, I named it, right now it is giving me the name of a class name. I can name it anything. This could be a servlet match. That is what it does. I just naming that for you, just to understand that URL mapping is actually that very name that comes on the URL with which your servlet is identified in your project. So this way you also hide the name of a servlet from the end user. Right, so let's say my servlet will be recognized by this very name. Thereafter I can give a description of any java file, any class file. Similarly I can give a description also. So here I'm just giving a description called first servlet creation, because this is the first servlet that I'm creating, right? And then do I need any initialization parameter? There is this concept of passing few parameters, which can stay globally across all projects, which I discuss later on. Right, if I click next over here, I'm being told that do I need constructor from http servlet class? Do I need to make this a final class so that no other class can extend it? That I don't want to do. Right, do I need to extend any other interface? No, http servlet is fine enough for me. For the generic servlet is a parent of http servlet, so I'm fine with that. Do I need do get or do post? I said let me just start with do get only. Do I need any constructor? I said no. Right, do I need all these other methods that http servlet provides? As of now, no. Do I need this init destroy lifecycle method servlet config which tells me the name of a container? I'll tell you about that also, get servlet info also. Right, the moment I say finish over here, it gives me a servlet with that same very description which I gave, with that very same URL pattern which I gave. Right, this is the annotation with which you can create a servlet. Either you can create a servlet using annotation, or you can give the servlet mapping in the web.xml file. Here also I could have declared this servlet. Right, and I could have mentioned in web.xml file deployment descriptor file, which actually takes the entries of all the servlet that exist in your container which you want to invoke at one point or the another. Right, so what does this do get method doing? It is just printing the name of a context path, your project name, first servlet. Right, so right now let me just start this server. So here I can just test this servlet also standalone. I said run it on server. I said Tomcat version 9 because I have loaded Tomcat version 9 only. Here a Tomcat, my server is coming up, so it will open a browser. It will run this very servlet on this very container because I've just mentioned the context path here as part of my do get method. Do get and do post, all these methods have basically two parameters, request and response from http servlet request and http servlet response. All of them throws this kind of exception to the parent JVM. Right, and I am just getting a writer from the response object, and after that append method serve that and the name of a project. That was what I was saying, first project, right? And your servlet is being identified with this very name, so you can hide the real name of a servlet from the end user, right? So this is how a servlet can be created. After that, whatever business functionality that I want to write here inside do get method or do post method, that I can do. But first thing that I need to know is a servlet can't be created till the time you don't extend HTTP servlet class. Right, this is a normal description like we used to write description for Java files. Similarly, I can write a description for a servlet. This is URL pattern, one of the most important things in servlet programming. This is how your servlet is identified across all project. Right, HTTP servlet is the abstract class. Right, I'll just add the source from the servlet API. I'll show you how to add the source also. Right, and I'm just appending this information. Right, so after this, let's just understand the basic definition of a servlet. If somebody asks me how will you define servlet, what will I say? See, servlet is basically defined as, it's an extension of a server that enhances the server's functionality. Now, what do I mean by that? It is the extension of a server or the Apache Tomcat server or the web server, by just giving me this flexibility to enhance the server functionality. What is the server functionality? Getting the request, sending the response back, right? And if you ask me, the most common use of a servlet is to extend a web server by providing dynamic web content. Ultimately, my job is to provide the web content or a dynamic web content, basically that changes at runtime back to the end user on the UI. Right, so the job of a servlet is to enhance the server's functionality by providing the dynamic web content back to the user. Right, so ultimately the web content or the front end is the HTML page, right, hypertext markup language, wherein I have embedded, if it is JSP file and I am including HTML there, I can use scriptlet expressions, other JSTL tag libraries. That is a separate thing, expression tags to present my data. Right, so basically servlet is being considered as extension to the server, extension to the web server. There is application server also, but servlet, web server and the servlet container are one and the same thing. They both are there to serve the servlets, right? And Apache Tomcat is one of their most common example. Right, after that, you just saw what I did while creating a servlet. Now let me just add few more lines as part of a do get method, so that we know how to write anything, whatever I want to write I can write. So here, I am just creating a print writer object using the same response.getWriter method. Ultimately, it gives me a print writer only. In Java, basically you have SOP, system out println, system class out implicit object println method. But in server-side programming, you have this print writer API. I can embed any HTML code also. Using the right method, I could have said that let's have the break keyword first, because I want to print the data in the next line thereafter. After printing this line, I would like to print the further data in the next line. Alright, so since I have a do get method, if I pass any parameter from the UI, from the URL, I could print that parameter also. So if I say I have a string parameter from the request.get parameter, alright, if I say I will give you, some let's say first name of an end user, I could send this as part of the HTML file or the JSP. But here I would like to just show you that if you have got the name, you could paste this name also using the same response.getWriter, using the same PW. I could have simply said, right here I could have said the name which I have got from the HTML file. Right here I just printed this first name. I'll just send this because I have the index.html also with me. I'm here as of now I'm not I can have an action tag or basically a form. Let's say I can have a form, and as part of a form I can pass a method as get, right? And I can call a servlet as, let's say, the name of a servlet with which I recognize a servlet in the entire container is servlet match. So here I can do that, right? So this is how you can, pass, and after that I can, add some few things as part of the HTML files. For example, how do you want to send the first name? So let's say I have two more things. I have first name written on the HTML page. I have got the input tag. I have got the name of a text box is first name. Similarly, I have got, last name also, and the name of a text box is last name. After this, I have got a submit button, on the click of which the servlet will get invoked, right? And how should I write the submit button? I could write the submit button with the help of, input type submit. I could say input, then type and submit. This way a button will come up, all right, on the end of an HTML page. All right, so I'm just closing the form tag over here. All right, so first name and the last name will come up, and here whatever I will enter, it will be pulled by the servlet and it will be shown back to the end user on the click of a submit button. Right, one last thing, as part of the servlet I am using SOP also to print anything on console. So you can write anything on console also using SOP. Using print writer, you can write anything on the web UI also, web portal, on the HTML also. In the servlet part I can write JSP also, but that is later, we'll talk about that later, right? So if I run this, HTML file on the server, see how it looks like. Here I have not mentioned the, forward slash, right? I'll just show you how, this thing works. Will I be able to capture the name of a servlet like this without forward slash or not? Here, since I have got a do get method as part of my servlet, so method get is being written down. If I would have got a do post method, I would have written post also. So for example, first name is ABC, last name is XYZ, and if I just click over here, ABC is given to me. Everything is being appended as part of a URL, and I have successfully wrote that on the UI also. Here I have written on console also. So basically, as part of this very session, I have learned how to create a servlet. I did not talk much about the methods of HTTP servlet class, that we'll talk later. I've just created a doGet method. Right now, I have not configured anything in web.xml deployment descriptor file also. Entire servlet is being created using a web servlet annotation. Right, I've created a basic HTML file, basic form tag, method, action. We have multiple other attributes or tags for form tag that we'll talk about later. Right, and this is how this whole small base flow can work, and based on this I can create any kind of flow. All right, so in the case of servlet and JSP, we have talked about multiple other things like HTTP session, HTTP, servlet. We will talk about other method of HTTP servlet also. We know what servlet context, servlet config, we'll talk about that also. All right, so as part of this very session, we have just understood the flow between the servlet and the HTML file, and how a servlet can be created and can be executed individually also. Right, individually also I could have run it. Now the first name will come as null because I have not passed the name of a first name from the HTML file. When I was passing the name of a first name from the HTML file, then it was successfully going as part of flow to my servlet. Right, this is about a basic HTML or a JSP servlet flow. Thank you.